Hello, today we're using these special silkscreen stencils which are made by Chill Culture, and we are going to learn how to use silkscreen. So in this process we're using self-adhesive stencil, so it's very sticky on the back. And not only that, but it has actually silk. So this is actually a translucent silk in there. Very microscopic little openings will help us push the paint or ink through these openings. And that's the way we're gonna make our print. So it's adhesive on one back. We're gonna be using repurposed board, just a regular plastic board that we are gonna cut to size. So I'm gonna start marking my board, and I can use a ruler or I can use the side of the stencil. And we are going to use these craft sticks, tongue depressors, to create our own wood board, quote unquote. So this is plastic, so it does cut through. A little easier when it's diagonal because it's going with the grain. Be careful not to cut yourself. Okay, so that's the exact same size to match our stencil. So first we're gonna create a nice wood look to it. For wood look, so what we can do is use a tacky glue and line these up, and we're going to be cutting the round parts off so that it fits on our wood board. And since they're short, too short in this case, we're going to be staggering them, and I'll show you how that looks. So all I'm doing right now is I'm cutting these round corners. I'm cutting them to size. And then I'm just gonna figure out pieces to fit in between. I'm just gonna be staggering them. Kind of look natural. So first I'm gonna just fill this out like so. Okay, so now that we have pre-cut the long ones, we're gonna be cutting the short pieces to fit. So you can mark it if it's convenient or eyeball it, but technically you can just make a nice simple pencil line. And you can check and you'll see that they're about the same, right? So this is gonna be this one is a little shorter. So this is gonna be my stencil for the rest, so I know I have to cut them like this. So we have that measured. We can use that length now over and over in order to cut those pieces to fit there. And kind of stagger them around and make it look like a real wood board, which is fun. So I'm just using my stencil I made, and I'm just cutting this off to fit, and then I'm staggering them around and getting them all all filled in. I still need 2 more, but almost there. All done. Okay, so now all we need is, instead of, I tried to cut this to fit, but it's so uneven. It was just a bad cut, so I'm gonna cut that off. And then I'm gonna use tacky glue in order to stick these good. This should be a pretty good adhesive to help us glue it on. Alternative would be using maybe a hot gun, so hot glue gun, so we can try that as well. And since this is a workshop that is meant for teachers to have as a team building activity on one of our teacher planning days, we can use hot glue gun. I wouldn't suggest using hot glue gun with the kids in case of burning. Kids can very much get burned and hurt using a glue gun, so that would not be a good option. Putting this tacky glue generously on with my brush, and it's water soluble, so I'm gonna save my brush after and wash it. And so I'm evenly coating my board, nice and simple, and thoroughly putting glue on all of the edges, especially so it doesn't fall from there when we are trying to apply the paint, and lifting and applying some pressure with the silk screen process over this. So this would be number 1 step. And once it's nicely coated, we're gonna just start filling it in. So start in the corner and then from edge to edge. So this one is at edge, this one is at edge, so that you have that exact space that we cut to put it back the way we cut it. So that's the way it fits. Okay. I think this one was on the bottom, but it doesn't matter. It can be on top now, as long as we do it from this edge to staggering to the next edge. Okay. So tacky glue dries pretty good. While we're getting ready for the next activity, you can set some books over this, some heavy books on the side, so that you can grab it really well, and then we're ready to go with the printing process in part 2. Nice and simple, and I think this is a great idea to try at home with family, and I'm sure it would be very popular because these come out looking so adorable when they're done. This popsicle stick is a little warped. It's coming out a little bit. I might have to replace it. See how it's really not sitting flat, and then might give us a hard time when we're printing on it. Okay, so get it there. Okay, so this one will be replaced. I'm gonna do that now. Other than that, I'm gonna go and set this under books so it can get dried a little bit, and then we're gonna go to the next part 2. Okay, just like that, with magic, everything works. All replaced and done. And so now we're gonna let it dry just a little bit underneath a heavy pile of books for just maybe 5 minutes. Will be fine while we're getting our next supply ready. Okay, so this one was sitting for a little while now, and when you take it off from the books, there might be some glue residue, so take a paper towel and just wipe any glue residue off before you start stenciling with the silk screen. And You can even apply, slide a little bit of water to the areas that might have some residue glue, and it won't hurt it, and just wipe it off a bit. And then when you're ready, you're gonna position your stencils corner to corner on your board, like so. Again, it's gonna be salt adhesive. And today, normally chalk culture also makes specific paints to use, which can be the inks or the chalk type of paint. Today, we're using an inexpensive alternative, which I found to work just as well, except you have to seal it because it's not gonna be sealed. So it will not be able to be used with these paints in the weather. It would get damaged by the rain, for example. So it would have to be sealed afterwards. And then we're gonna use a little bit of water and a sponge. And this inexpensive alternative is actually an inexpensive face painting kit that you can purchase at craft store, Michael's or Hobby Lobby. And it works really well, just as well. And these paints are not that great for face painting. There are better brands for face painting, but I find with the stencil projects, these work just fine. So I am, if you notice the way I'm doing it, I am rubbing in circles, and it pushes the paint through those little microscopic like openings. So I'm rubbing and forcing through, but not rubbing too hard, mainly just in a circle, because we don't want to go underneath the stencil. So let's look what we have. Okay, so that didn't look too great, and that's a good example of what not to do. So I forgot to mention one thing, and I didn't do it too, is that I had too much water on my sponge, and this is why that happened. So when it's too wet, it's not gonna work that great, and I'm glad that I checked. So it's better to load the sponge more and with less water. So more paint, less water will create a crispy line. So let's just hope that the excess water got squeezed out. And let's try for that A here. Autumn. So right now I'm going over it and brushing it over in circles. I just put very little. Okay, that actually worked. See that? So close enough anyway. So that is how you do it, and you can choose each line in a different color and choose your nice warm colors. Warm colors, orange, yellow, and red. For the full scene, bright yellows. Again, really just very little of that yellow. It will not show really good on the board. I will show you, for example, this pumpkin here. It probably yellow wouldn't show as great because the color is already that color. So just add some other color in conjunction with yellow if you're gonna choose yellow. So maybe put it as a highlighter on top of something that already has color on as a highlighting agent. So what I do when I'm loading up these paints with the sponge, I'm like going around in circle a couple of times, and I'm really loading it up, getting that pigment in, and then I'm just pushing it through the stencil, like stippling almost. But I find that working in circles works really well as well. So let's see if that worked better. Yeah, so now it's not all over. You can kind of see the pumpkin shape, even though it's not perfect because the first line smeared. But that's okay because this sign doesn't have to be perfect. It's just going to be whimsical and fun. So reserve each color for a different sponge. So there are different sponges that have colors. So blue for blue or purple for purple. So my next line, I'm gonna try to add just a dab of water, just barely touching it with the water. And then with that, I'm gonna keep swirling inside of my palette to get a good load on the sponge. I'm swirling to get that in. Now that my sponge is loaded, I am going to try to say the pumpkin. And I don't know if I had enough water now. It's sort of like a balance between too much and too little. See how dry that is? So what I'll do, I'll take this brush and I'll add just a little bit of water onto the purple, and then I'm gonna keep working it. Sponges can get really soaked really quick, so I don't want to just immerse the whole sponge into the water and risk that it's gonna run and that the words are not gonna come through. So I'm rubbing and I'm rubbing them on. It looks like the consistency this time is much better. Let's check gently. Yes, see how much crispier that line actually is now? So that is what we're looking for. And then I'm gonna go pick a color for the skies. Something tells me maybe I need some red in there. So I will try that. Same process, a very tiny little bit of water inside of the color, and then I am swirling it on and sort of almost dry brushing it, just getting it from the sponge through the silk screen. Remember, there is a fabric, even though it's really, really thin fabric, it's a silk fabric. Even though it's very thin fabric, it is still a fabric that paint has to squeeze through. And that helps it create those beautiful, precise, tiny little writing that we're making right now. You can explain to students also that this is something, the same method that was used for a really long time making t-shirts, silk print, and still is being used for the limited edition t-shirts, artist t-shirts and things like that right now to this day, even though they have all kinds of expensive t-shirt press technology now. But this is the way it was done before. Okay, not too bad. It's shaping, it's going in there. I'm pretty happy with it. So I'm gonna go back into my orange. A little bit of water on there. Swirl for quite a while to get that load up really well onto the sponge. And then pushing through and swirling at the same time to achieve the silk screen printing process. I just reused a sponge that was already loaded with some highlights, going slightly over an area to, okay, that was a lot of water, I did that, to achieve blending of the two colors. So I'm rubbing into the paint, and this might be too much water. I see how it's foaming on top already. Okay, so for the sake of the video, we'll have more time in class. Yay, I like it. So when you're done with your stencil, position it back on the glossy part of the stencil paper, the glossy part, corner to corner, and we can reuse these couple of times. Company says they're good for up to 8 times. But with good care, we should be able to use them a few more times even. And that is all. Thank you for watching.